Hi, and welcome to Matt Holman Talks Mental Health, the podcast where I have the opportunity to sit down and talk to amazing humans about their journeys with mental health. For this conversation, I'm so happy to introduce Garth Peters to the conversation. Welcome, Garth.
Hey, Matt. Great to meet you.
Nice to see you. Welcome. As I always do, just a very brief introduction. I won't steal any of your story, but I do just want to put out at the beginning of this that we will be talking about some very challenging subjects at times. And I just want to make sure everybody is comfortable and okay with that. So please do take care of yourself as you listen to this episode. And we'll get into it very shortly. But Garth and I have met through social media, through LinkedIn in particular, following some of the work that he's doing. He's following the work I'm doing. And you know what, like all these beautiful things, we decide it's a good idea to have a conversation about it and to record an episode of us having that conversation. So I know a little bit about your story, Garth. I know you're going to tell that, but tell people what you do, if you can, as an introduction briefly at the beginning.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Matt. So my name's Garth. I'm a mental fitness coach. And that basically means that I do things like holistic fitness, health, nutrition, that kind of thing. And that's something that I've learned since becoming a personal trainer, nutritionist. Over time, it's just grown to be a lot more holistic. I'm very passionate about mental health. Very passionate about kind of instilling mindful habits into everyday life. And really, what I do is people who have suffered from anxiety, trauma, loss of confidence, who suffer from insomnia, to try and get control of their life, and also just look at trying to put the past behind them.
Brilliant. No, I appreciate that and welcome. So it's good. We're going to delve into that, what you do, why you do it, and how you do it. And
sure.
I guess the journey of your life has defined a lot of this as well. So let's talk about your journey with mental health. That's the big question. Garth, I'm going to throw it over to you. Tell us a story. Just tell us what's been going on.
Sure. Yeah, no, thanks, Matt. So I guess really what kind of propelled me into doing what I do and what I've wanted to do, what I found my passion was something that happened to me back in 2012. It was an incident that happened. But just to go back a little bit before that, I had my then girlfriend back in 2010. So I met her in Bournemouth, which is where I was living at the time. And she suffered from bipolar. And I had absolutely no idea, if I'm completely honest, about mental health. Really, I didn't really understand much about depression. I didn't really understand much about any kind of conditions, that type of thing. So really, I wasn't fully clued up on what that meant when she told me she had bipolar. But she talked me through it, and she really helped me understand what that means for her, and for anybody that suffers from mental health. So it was very, without meaning to sound kind of as though it was some kind of a task, it was very good for me to get a better understanding of what that means. So we dated for a couple of years, and then in 2012, unfortunately, we went out for dinner and drinks. That wasn't the unfortunate part; that was a good part. Yeah. But what happened is I unfortunately got attacked, just an unprovoked attack that happened. And this was in the same area, so in Bournemouth. And I just basically, we were in a place where these two people just took a dislike to us, unfortunately. So I tried to get her and myself out of the situation. And what happened was that the person, for whatever reason, just took a dislike and decided to attack me. So whilst I was facing the other way, I didn't really have any knowledge of it. I got kicked in the head. I landed on the concrete head first, and then I got punched in the face, and I landed on the concrete again head first. The good thing about it, in a way, is I have no memory of right. Situation. So I have a memory up to a certain point, and then it's gone. But what happened was I woke up in the morning, literally in the morning, because this happened late at night. I woke up in the morning in a hospital, surrounded by some doctors, and they were talking to me about what happened. Couldn't really hear what they were saying because I hadn't realized that I'd actually lost hearing because of the injuries. And what had happened was that I had been attacked. I'd been left for dead, basically. I was told that I died for about 4 seconds. And I was lucky enough, to be honest, that the people in the street, just kind of put me in a recovery position, call the ambulance. I got taken to the hospital. I was left with some really bad injuries. So I had some severe skull fractures on one side of my head, which caused a brain injury, caused loss of hearing. So I still now actually have not very good hearing on one side of my head. And I actually had hairline fractures all over the other side of my face and my head. Basically everything was fractured in a way. And I had my jaw was detached from my face. So it was, I didn't actually, I didn't think to look at myself, which I'm kind of glad of. I didn't think to pick up my phone and take a picture of it, but my jaw was literally detached from my skull. So it was pretty bad. It had to be wired back together, and I have metal plates in my face to hold everything back together. So that was pretty bad. The brain injury meant that the operation that they needed to do had to be delayed until they got the all clear to say you can operate. We're okay with the state of my brain. And we got to a place where I had the operation. Thankfully, they managed to do everything from the inside and not the outside. And I was sent home and basically just started my recovery then. What that meant, unfortunately, was that I couldn't lie flat for a few months because of the injuries to my head. So they were a bit worried that if I lay flat, that parts of my head might move around. So it's sorry to be graphic, and unfortunately, I couldn't eat solid food for the best part of a year as well. So it was really kind of, it was life changing, to be honest. So I talked about my girlfriend as well, and she suffered from bipolar, and she really did have a difficult life up until, I would like to think up until the time that we met, and everything was in a good place, but unfortunately that attack kind of pushed her over the edge a bit. And a few weeks after what happened, she tried to take her own life. And she died in hospital just a few days after that happened. So it was really sad. I guess the difficult part for me, on top of what happened, was that I wasn't able to kind of get myself to the hospital or anything. So I had to rely on people to help me do that on a daily basis. So, I'm really grateful for some amazing friends and family that helped me do that. And I guess that's not really the end of the story. So what happened was, a few months after the attack, the person who attacked me, they actually they had been arrested. They had been charged with what had actually happened. But when it came to them being sentenced, they were nowhere to be found. So they never got sentenced. They were never brought to justice. Nobody knows where they are now, so we can only assume that they maybe fled the country or something. So that was kind of the I don't really know what to. I was going to say the icing on the cake, but it wasn't really a sweet ending.
No, it was more of a kick in something than the icing, right?
Yeah. So, but those are kind of three big events that happened in a very short period of time, and that put me in not a very good place, mentally and physically. I did, over a period of time, start to realize that exercise was going to do me a lot of good. I realized that nutrition was going to do me a lot of good, and I realized that talking about this was going to do me a lot of good. But it took me time to get to that point. So initially I was very, very down about the whole situation. I didn't really want to be around myself. I did get to the point where I did actually, I was on a lot of medication to try and get everything to heal.
Yep.
I decided one day that I would just lay everything out and just go for it and take it and just not have to worry about all this anymore. Yeah. And I can smile about these things because I think it's just that it's just realization about some of these things, that you realize that sometimes things do feel like they happen for a reason. So I laid out everything. I decided I was going to end it. I have no epiphany that happened. I have no kind of like moment I thought I just can't do this. I literally just fell asleep. You know, I just lay down and fell asleep, and I woke up the next morning and was like, I'm so happy I didn't do that. You know,
Right.
but I could have done. You know,
Yeah.
so so that was kind of the start of my kind of rebuilding of my mental health, I guess. I went to counseling.
Yeah.
I was referred to psychologists. I was referred to psychiatrists, and no one. I couldn't seem to get to a better point that way. I really struggled with talking to people about it.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is that the people who were talking to me, that so when I was going to get counselling, for example, I would often be told that I'm a really good listener and I should think about doing counselling, which was a strange situation, but
Yeah.
a good situation, I guess. So I did do that. I started taking on some counselling training and got myself to a certain level, not counsellor level, but a level where I could become a counsellor if I wanted to.
Sure.
So I did some counselling training there. What I also did is I really wanted to take back my independence, I guess, and my bring back some confidence. So I started to get into fitness. Like I would run. It didn't do anything for me in the beginning.
Right.
I ran for a certain distance,
Yeah.
and then the next time I tried to run, I felt like I was going slower for a shorter distance, and
Yeah.
it was kind of a bit painful, really. So someone suggested, a friend of mine suggested that I should try. I don't know if you've heard of a program called Insanity. It's a 2 month workout, which is
Right.
Shaun T in America,
Okay.
and it is pretty insane, if I'm honest with you.
Well, that's
It's
the name, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So it's high intensity interval training,
Right.
and it's about 45 minutes to an hour per workout, and you do it like 6 days a week for 2 months. And I kind of thought she was a little bit crazy for asking. I thought, I can't even run at the moment. You know, like, so how am I going to do this? But I tried it, and it just, something about it just made me feel amazing. You know,
Right.
and I loved it. So it just, I did it. I did the whole 2 months. I started this maybe in August time of that same year. So I had those injuries in January of that year.
Wow.
By August, I was doing this crazy workout.
Right.
Um, and I was so, like, it just made me feel so good. So it definitely helped me to get some confidence back. To the point where I decided I really want to do more of this. So I started to train as a personal trainer. Um, and the other thing that happened as well was, I mentioned about I couldn't eat solid food, and that was really difficult, because at first I was lucky enough to have my mum and my sister around me, who are both, very knowledgeable in healthcare and nutrition.
Yeah.
My mum actually has her own healthcare business as well. So, I was fortunate in that way. But initially, they just wanted to get calories in me, and sort of tried to build me up again. Um, and what we found is that initially, like, protein shakes, that kind of thing, just trying to get calories into me. Bearing in mind, this is 9 years ago,
Yeah.
they weren't very healthy. They were just full of sugar and stuff. So it wasn't really helping me initially. But I realized that I wasn't feeling good. I wanted to feel better. So nutrition became a massive part of my life. And I just learned about something new every day about nutrition. My sister helped me on a massive scale. She would cook for me every day, and she would help me get the right nutrients into me. And I really believe that kind of helped me to a massive point of getting better, and being able to, where I said I was started doing those workouts. I think nutrition was one of the major factors that helped me get to that point, and make my body and my mind to be in a much better place to be able to take it on. So I did study nutrition as well, and became a nutritionist. And the other thing is the sleep part. So I couldn't lay flat for a period of time. I also, ran through my mind everything I knew. So didn't have any memory of the attack. So I would always have memory up to a certain point, and then nothing, and then kind of waking up in the hospital. So I'd have so many questions that I would just keep going through my mind constantly, and thinking, like, what happened, or what if I did this, or did I do this, or I would question whether it was my fault. I actually didn't know. So my the lucky thing is I had the detective who was over the whole case. He was asking me how things were. Obviously I was telling him about the situation with my girlfriend and everything that was, and I guess he couldn't really believe it, that this was all happening on top of the attack. But he did sit me down and he talked me through the whole situation, because it was all recorded on CCTV, and they had watched it on a number of occasions, and he basically just walked me through every single step of what happened, and that just helped me so much. It was a bit like journaling, and that's kind of where I got hold of journaling. So just piecing together those bits and almost like taking things out of your mind and putting it onto paper, it helped me so much just to write down what I now knew, as opposed to what I kept thinking what happened. And that just shifted the sleep for me. So it got me where I started to feel a lot more relaxed. I could start to sleep a bit more. And even though I still wasn't able to lie flat, I could kind of have a bit of peace in my mind. And I think the sleep also attributed to me being able to do, get into the workouts and the exercise in a big way. For me, like sleep and nutrition was the big kind of drivers to get me into a better place. So that was the kind of, the start of the year was pretty bad. It continued like that for quite a while. I tried to do something about it. I tried to get stronger. I tried to get, mentally and physically. Starting the next year, taking my first class as a trainer, training people with my own workouts. So it was, that was a great place to be.
Yeah.
But it definitely, it was not the end of the journey, because I still had to figure out stuff in my mind. Yeah. And over the following kind of couple of years, I started to have very much ups and downs throughout life, really. And it wasn't until I started to really think about the situation. So I would blame myself often about my girlfriend's death. Yep. I would really kind of believe that it was down to me that she did that. If maybe I had done something differently, something might be different. And I think I just kind of took that mentality forward into a lot of things, thinking that if only have I done something differently, and I blame myself for a lot of things, Oh. So I thankfully I just had a chat with someone once, and it was just it was a casual chat that we had, and it was all about acceptance. And I started to just really think about this situation, about what happened. I guess it didn't happen overnight, but it did happen over a period of time where I started to realize that I got attacked. Yep. It was completely out of my control. I didn't ask for it to happen. It was unprovoked. My girlfriend took her own life, and as much as I wish I could have done something differently or changed that, it wasn't my control. It was unfortunately her decision in the end that she decided to do that. And with the person who attacked me and them disappearing and not being sentenced, I couldn't do anything about that either. That's not my choice for him to run away. That was completely his choice. So I came to a point of accepting everything that had happened. And once I really accepted everything kind of, I don't mean to sound too up in the sky right now, but everything did change for me in a huge way, because it just kind of drew a line under things. It made me realize that these events that happened don't necessarily define me, and they're not what makes me. And for a period of time, I thought that, if we had this conversation, say 8 years ago, I would have told you the story and almost felt that you should treat me differently because of it. Right.
Yeah.
And it got to a point where, that was kind of how I was going through life, thinking that, I should be treated differently because look what I've been through. It's so tragic, and you should probably have some sympathy for me. and I got to a point where I realized, you know, I don't want to be like that. I don't want people to feel sorry for me. I do want to do something good with it, but I just struggled so much. But that acceptance just made a big difference for me. So once I realized that some things just really are out of your hands, and it's what you do after it, and what your own actions are, that really count, is what was a game changer for me. So that's what brought me to where I am now. The fitness, the personal training, the nutrition, that was always a thing right from the beginning for me. But it was, but I always wanted to get deeper into someone's, you know, story. So if someone asked me for some help, I just couldn't leave it at, like, you know, let's just do some workouts and let's just do it in nutrition. I needed to know more. You know, I needed to know why they were in that place and why they wanted to, like, you know, what got them there in the first place. And that's where I guess the counseling training really helped for me. You know, it kind of helped develop my listening skills, which I think were always there, but it kind of helped me hone them a little bit, you know. So that's kind of where it developed into a much more holistic approach, and I started to understand that there's a lot more than, not to say there's anything wrong with just personal training, but for me there was a lot more than personal training. It was more about getting over things that have happened for people. So that's why I said it, helping people who have lost confidence, you know, suffer from anxiety, who have suffered from trauma. Those are the things that I really specialize in, because I guess that's the things that I've suffered with myself.
Wow. What a story.
So there you go.
Yeah, Garth, thank you. And thank you for sharing that, you know, and there's a lot in there, and you've been through a huge amount as well, you know, and with the experiences you've had to go through. I think there's a couple of points that I want to pick out, if that's okay, and not to get back over any of the specific details, but just in terms of this point of acceptance. I love that, because it's the hardest thing actually when somebody is struggling with their mental health, is to accept that I have a problem, you know, or a challenge. Let's not say it's a problem, let's say a challenge, right? So because we don't recognize it, we're not educated so well in understanding that when things aren't going so well. So I just want to draw a bit of more of attention into that, if that's okay, just in terms of that.
Yeah, of course.
Got to that point of acceptance of, you know, recognizing those elements. Was it the counseling? Was it a combination of other things? Was it sitting with that detective, going through the story, giving that closure to things? How did you get to that point?
Yeah, so I guess initially, the counseling for me was very frustrating, because I could see that people wanted to help. I could see that people wanted me to open up, but I just couldn't do it. You know, I just couldn't. I couldn't drop the facade of, like, being okay. You know, I just couldn't walk into a room with someone, and it didn't necessarily mean that it's because I didn't know the person. I was the same with anyone else. You know, I just couldn't. I couldn't drop the kind of the trying to be strong facade, really. So that really, you know, that held me back a lot. And it was only until after I went through counseling, and it didn't work. And like I said, I went to, like, a psychiatrist, and it didn't really work. And I went to a psychologist, it didn't really work. And then I kind of came back round again and went through more counseling and things. I could see that it wasn't happening and it wasn't working. But I also started to realize that, you know, I think there's more to it than just the person isn't doing what they need to do, or you know, I'm not connected with them. There's a bit more to it than that. And I guess I just started to realize that I think it's down to me, this actually the causing the problem. So that's probably not the best way to word it in terms of causing a problem, but it is. I think unless I change something, I wasn't going to get the result that I was looking for, you know. So I guess it was time and realization. But to give you kind of maybe a clearer answer is, when I started working with clients on fitness and nutrition, I started to realize that, you know, I would get some people who would come to me and say, you know, I want to kind of get a lot fitter. I want to, some people would say, you know, I want to get my six pack. I want to, like, I just want to look in a better place. And to me, I couldn't quite accept that, you know. I couldn't quite accept that that's all you want to do. Like, there's something else that's got you to this place that you feel like you need to be in a better place, you know. And I think that's what started to really make me question myself. And there was a shift there. And having that conversation with this person, so this person is just like a friend of the family who's also a therapist, and I guess I was in the right place at the right time to have a conversation with them. But she really kind of talked me through and gave her perspective on things, and it just shifted my mind to thinking, actually, I need to be able to open up in order for someone to help me, And I think that opening up and got me to a place where I started to ask questions about why I think everything's my fault. And those questions then started to come up with answers where, actually, maybe it's not my fault. So it wasn't an overnight process. It definitely took me some time, but it did get there,
Yeah, it's fascinating. I think that's the challenge. You've said the T word in there a few times. Time is really important. It's critical in all of this as well, isn't it? In the sense of not trying to rush through things. You have to go through processes. You have to work through things. You have to learn as you go, because we're not taught how to do this, ever really in our lives, are we? It's, when a trauma happens or when an incident happens or a sudden loss, and lots of people this last 12 months, 14 months have gone through some serious changes, right? Challenges, sudden loss of a job, loved ones, COVID has, taken too many, and all those things. And it really is interesting to hear your insights there as well. We've got a few more minutes. We don't have too much more time, unfortunately, for this, but in terms of what you're doing now, working with others, it sounds absolutely fascinating, because, people think of fitness, and you're right, it's sort of a gym program, or it might have an attachment of a bit of nutrition, but you go a step beyond that, right, in what you're doing. So what is that step? What do you really get into with your clients? Let's say, I guess they're clients, right?
Yeah. And like I said before, just having a gym program or having a nutrition plan, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But I guess everyone has their own kind of clients that they're looking to help, And for me, it does go deeper than that. So often what I tend to do is I didn't really pick up on it straight away, but what I tend to do is I tend to attract people who are feeling stuck. And they're not necessarily sure why they're feeling stuck, but they generally put it down to their fitness is not in the right place, and the nutrition is not in the right place. And I would start in that place, but realizing that there's a lot more going on, and the focus would shift from that to a different focus, which would be the other thing that's going on. And unfortunately, most of the time it comes down to an event that happened in their life, and that's kind of caused some issues, and very often that's down to childhood as well. But it's for me, it's really just once I realized that's what's happening, I started to focus more on that side of things. So I still use fitness and I still use nutrition as the main kind of emphasis of what I do, but it's as tools to overcome the trauma that someone has been through, the anxiety that they may suffer on a daily basis, because just having different tools to deal with stress is a great thing. And nutrition is a massive thing for me. So, because like I said, it's really important for me, and just getting the right foods in and feeling good, and not having things that make you feel more anxious than you need to. That's a really big thing for me, and kind of longevity as well. So now I put my focus on looking at what's going on under the surface, what's going on in the background, trying to remove barriers, and then looking at the nutrition, the exercise, the movement, and then the mindful habits, etc.
Right. So yeah, it's fascinating because it's all interconnected, isn't it? The mental health, the physical health, Definitely. The nutritional parts, everything's interlocked, and we have to recognize that. And I think sometimes we try to just deal with one piece without recognizing the impact of the others, and also the stuff that's going on that we don't see, that we choose not to show.
I think so.
Yeah, I could listen to you talk about it for ages, of course. I'm going to close my part, and I'm going to ask you to impart any words of wisdoms or thoughts that you want to share, Garth, as well. But just want to say a huge thank you from myself, just to say, you know, your story is incredible. You've been through an experience, and thank you for sharing that. I really do genuinely mean that, and I want to wish you all the best with everything you're doing. So I'll pass it over to you to say your final thoughts, words of wisdom.
Sure, I will do. I'll tell you a very, very, very quick story. I won't keep it too long.
No, okay.
So one of the most pivotal moments in my life was not too long ago, so a few years ago, but not as far back as the attack. I met someone in a coffee shop just by chance, and we knew each other kind of on a I guess like a work level basis.
Yeah.
We were saying we'd have a coffee or something together. We were going to spend like 5 minutes. And for some reason, I just decided to open up and tell him everything that's going on. So that was all about how I'm feeling, all about like stuff that's going on with like relationships, all this kind of thing. And he kind of just sat and listened. And then he opened up all about what was going on with him and his relationships. And both of us shared things that neither of us knew about each other. And it changed our relationship to a whole different level. But really, it was a powerful thing that I realized that nowadays, often, you know, one of the big things that people say is to talk more, you know, about your experiences and about how you're feeling. What I realized is that it goes a little bit beyond that. So, you know, talking more is something that you need to do, but actually being able to talk more and being vulnerable can actually help someone else be more talkative and vulnerable. And it was just it just made me realize something so powerful, that just that conversation opened up a great situation for both of us, and we were both able to understand each other's situation. So yeah, so vulnerability and being open it's a difficult thing, but it makes such a difference in your life.
Brilliant. Well, great thoughts, great words. And, you know, two men sat down having a chat about mental health, eh? Who'd have thought in 2021 that was a possibility, but it's coming true. We are doing more. It's brilliant stuff. So Garth, keep on your journey. You're doing an incredible job. Please do keep helping all those people that you're helping through the work that you do. You know, and if anybody does want to get in touch, I'm sure they can. Is that okay? Open invitation?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Brilliant. So people can find you through the links in this video and through this podcast and everything else, and I'll make sure we share that. Huge thank you to you. As I always say at the end, if anybody is struggling, if you do need help, and of course we talked about some, you know, well, Garth shared a story which obviously has some, you know, significant impact to people. But if you are worried, if you are concerned, if you do need extra help and support, know Samaritans is always there to pick up the phone any time of day, 116 123, or you can text to shout 85258. There are many organizations out there that are willing and ready to support you if you're struggling. Please know you're not alone. It is the most important thing to be thinking, is when you're struggling, reach out. Somebody is there to listen. So thanks so much, Garth. It's been a pleasure. I wish you all the very best with everything.
Thank you so much. Thank you for everything you do. It's great to have this opportunity. Thanks, Matt.
You're more than welcome. Pleasure.